Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 74. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Friday show. And Dave, out east, out my way, our first real snow of the year. It's 17 degrees. The sidewalks are covered, and I can only assume it's a little bit different out there in Vegas.
Yeah, I think I even got a report yesterday, 60-something degrees out the Vegas airport, which I think was kind of a record for the date or something as a high there. Look, it does get cold out here in the desert at night, but it will warm up at times. I think we've even had snow before in like February and early March. So really, we've still got probably a little bit of cold weather on the way, but nothing like that. I remember I came in, we're coming up almost on the year anniversary, I think, of me making my trek out to see you and David O over there in Pittsburgh there, and that snow's fun to see once in a while, but no way would I want to live or drive it. I don't know how you do it. I'm going to get you out to the desert, moved out to the desert at some point, I have a feeling.
Hey, it won't take much, because on days like this, it's freezing. You can't go anywhere. It's like, why do I live here? So, but yeah, maybe I'll make a trek out to Vegas at some point in the future. But Dave, a lot to talk about today, of course, as we get ready for the Steelers' regular season finale Sunday afternoon against the Baltimore Ravens, a must-win game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A little bit later in the show, we'll have our good friend John Eisenberg, Ravens columnist, author of many books, including The League, on to talk about the Ravens and the state of them, a little bit of reminiscing about the Steelers-Ravens history in the Ben era. But let's start things off here with the Steelers injury report that came out on Thursday. We'll get the final one here today on Friday. Yesterday, not practicing for the Steelers included guard Trey Turner with a knee, Dan Moore with the ankle, Buddy Johnson with the foot, Arthur Millette with an illness, who had come off of COVID. We should mention, and we'll do that now, all the players that had come off of COVID, 6 of them, including Millette, though Millette was added for an illness, so we'll have to see what's going on there. And so from a COVID standpoint, it has certainly been bumpy, but before we get into that, we'll just talk injury report, the actual physical injuries, and an offensive line that is potentially going to look a lot different this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Joe Hayden's on the COVID list. Kendrick Green's on the COVID list. Wide receiver Deontay Johnson's on the COVID list. All of that as of yesterday. And here we are on Friday. That means you have just a couple of days to try to get those guys off of there. I suppose it could go either way here. I'm going to bet that they're not going to have Joe Hayden, Kendrick Green, or Deontay Johnson on Sunday against the Ravens. And, obviously Hayden's a starter and Deontay Johnson's 1,000-yard receiver. So not having those two guys alone is going to be a bit of a shock overall to this Steelers team heading into this finale. And as you mentioned, the big names on that list, Trey Turner with a knee, Dan Moore with an ankle. What's going to happen there? Friday, later on this afternoon, will be key to see what happens with that injury report. Dan Moore Jr. is a rookie, and you kind of wonder, if he doesn't practice today, if that might be a sign. To heck, they might just go ahead and rule him out. But man, what is the 8 offensive linemen likely to look like on Sunday as we sit here right now? Well, going to be a lot of a couple of probably call-ups from the practice squad. I think you could see Chaz Green and Rashad Coward both called up on there, and we'll have to see what happens with Dotson. They almost would have no choice but to unless they were. I don't know what else you would do at that point. I guess you could call up Pridgeon from the practice squad as well, too, if you don't activate Dotson there. But we might see who at left tackle? Possibly Haig. I don't know. Or Chukwuma Okorafor at left tackle. We could see Haig or Banner at right tackle. And obviously J.C. Hassenauer at center. and who knows what the guards would look like there. So, I mean, LeGlue would probably obviously be one of them there, but we might see a combination foreign to us from the first 16 games this season.
Yeah, and so definitely going to keep an eye on that. And the ankle injury that Moore suffered, you go back and look at the tape on that one, his ankle got twisted really badly, did not miss a play. Ben spoke to DVE today and said it was a high ankle kind of thing. I don't know if that's an official medical diagnosis, but clearly some sort of ankle sprain that Moore gutted out the rest of that game. And, was probably putting his availability in severe doubt for Sunday's game. But yeah, the O-line could look a lot different to finish this thing out. And so just to kind of recap all that happened with COVID, because there's been a lot going on, unfortunately. Well, some good news, some bad news. So 6 players were activated off of COVID a couple days ago. That's Zach Banner, Devin Bush, Arthur Millette, Anthony McFarland, Joe Schobert, and Chris Wormley. And so you're feeling good about getting all those guys back for the finale. And then about 2 hours later, the team announced that Joe Hayden was going on COVID. A little bit later, it was Deontay Johnson. And Kendrick Green, also defensive coordinator Keith Butler, is in the league's COVID protocol. So we don't know if he'll be able to coach in this finale either. And so Hayden, Johnson, Green, unlikely to play Sunday, not going to rule them out because of the different COVID protocol and the evolving COVID protocol that would give these guys a chance to test out in time. But based on the way things go, typically these guys are still missing 5 to 7 to 10 days. And so it's unlikely those guys get back. But at the least, hopefully the team should have back Banner, Bush, McFarland, Schobert, Wormley, and we'll have to check in on Millette, who had that illness that kept him out of yesterday's practice.
Yeah, and you never know. By the time we get off this show and upload this one to the internets, there might be another player or two added to the COVID list there. Look, not great, Bob, as we'd like to say, especially when the way this offense has been and not having your leading receiver in Deontay Johnson. What direction, you would think that they're probably going to elevate somebody off of the COVID list to help in that area, maybe either Anthony Miller or Steven Sims, you would think. So that's something worth watching there. But obviously neither one of those guys are going to be thought of as 1-for-1 replacements for one Deontay Johnson there. And we already talked about what this offensive line could potentially look like. Look, I mean, even if a guy like Dan Moore Jr. plays, he's not going to be 100%, obviously in this game. So that's another aspect of it. Man, you could have Zach Banner taking some meaningful snaps for the first time this season. And, Joe Haig, I mean, it's going to be a mess. You had Chukwuma Okorafor potentially on the left side. What a way to send Ben out on offense there. Hopefully the game plan is kind of a continuation maybe of what we saw, at least from a success rate aspect, as we saw against the Browns on Monday night there. And another thing to think about here, Alex, and this is a short week, man. This team played on Monday night. So they're Mike Tomlin, I think you can tell by the pictures alone on the Steelers.com website, really took it easy on this team this week here. And it being a short week, having to travel, having the COVID issues, this thing just doesn't line up great for the Steelers right now.
No, I imagine most practices this week have been something akin to a walkthrough, very low key, very low contact, because you're just trying to get healthy and get into that stadium on Sunday. Yeah, I don't know who's more beat up, the Ravens secondary or the Steelers offensive line. It's a good depressing battle to think about.
Yeah, it might be 3-0 game, 6-3 game in this one overall. But definitely pay attention to SteelersDepot.com later today for the injury report. And then I can guarantee you that there will be moves on Saturday before 4 o'clock there. So make sure you tune into the Twitter machine or the or SteelersDepot.com, because there are going to be a lot of moves that we're going to be writing about on Saturday with this team.
Yeah, and Steeler fans, get a printout of the roster and keep it handy, because there might be some new numbers and names on Sunday. I saw T-Grace. I saw 30 this past on Monday night. I was like, who is 30? It's T-Grace Scales. I'm like, okay. So it's just kind of one of those years in the COVID and injury world we're living in right now.
Right, absolutely.
All right, Dave, yesterday you had Matt Canada, and because Keith Butler's in the COVID protocol, Mike Tomlin was subbing in. There's probably a joke to be had about Tomlin subbing in for Keith Butler on the DC kind of side of things. But let's start with Matt Canada, what he had to say Also, I should actually backtrack quickly and mention that from the Ravens standpoint, Lamar Jackson still has not practiced for Baltimore this week with an ankle sprain that he suffered several weeks ago. So there's been no determination yet. It could be coming by the time people are listening to this, but all signs are pointing towards Tyler Huntley starting this finale for the Ravens.
Yeah, as we sit here right now, and based on kind of the video that's been out there from the last week and just kind of following the speculation, I would be surprised if they put Lamar Jackson out there in this game for sure. Especially not having, if he had some level of mobility to him where he could run away from TJ Watt, that might be one thing. But I just don't see it. So I think it's going to be Huntley in this one. Gives them some mobility, gives them some arm strength and all, ability to throw the football in this one. They should be okay at the wide receiver position and tight end position, even though they're not going to have Boyle, they'll have Mark Andrews. So I think barring the COVID running, hitting them at a few more spots, I think that's the way they're going to go with Huntley at quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you too, Dave. I know this game, technically the Ravens could make the playoffs, but they need even more help than the Steelers, and the Steelers need a lot of help. And so there's really no reward to play Lamar in this game. But let's go back to what Matt Canada had to say, speaking with the media yesterday. Was asked about Dan Moore and his future. And Canada said was really impressive about Moore's toughness and sort of resolve to play through that game, because that ankle sprain came in the first quarter. It was on a 3rd and 2 play before the 4th and 1 fullback dive from Derek Watt, and he got rolled up really bad. He was limping around, did not miss a play, did not miss a snap in that game, and played, I still think, pretty well overall, given the context of the ankle injury when you go back through the tape. But said that Moore has a lot of upside and a really bright future. He said, quote, I appreciate how hard he played, how hard he has worked, and feel like he's got a huge upside. Ben, speaking with DVE today, made similar comments about how this guy's going to be kind of a future, staple at left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I got some pushback on the Twitter machine the other day, Alex, because I proclaimed that we've seen enough on tape. We said it, I think, a day or two ago on the podcast as well, too, about kind of, look, Dan Moore's probably going to be your future left tackle of this team. No, he's not going to go to the Pro Bowl this year. No, he's not going to get any All-Pro votes. But I think we saw growth from Dan Moore as the season went on, and you got the level of the draft pick, 4th round, I think, with him, invested in him overall. There's no reason, at least coming out of what I've seen of the tape so far, there's no reason to think that this guy is not kind of the slam dunk starting left tackle for this team in 2022. And I put that out on Twitter, I think yesterday, got a lot of pushback on it, but judging by what Canada had to say and what Ben had to say this morning, I think I'm going to be right about that, or we're going to be right about that.
Yeah, I echoed those thoughts on that. I think Tuesday or Wednesday show that you felt comfortable about him, and I don't think he's going to be a stud All-Pro left tackle. And I think you'll always have the question: could you do better than Dan Moore? Sure, he's not Rashawn Slater or somebody that's just like, this dude's a stud from day one, but he's also a 4th round pick and a guy that. I don't want to say that you didn't expect to play, because by the summer you kind of realized this guy's probably going to play, a lot of snaps for you. But when you first drafted him, you thought maybe this could be more of a redshirt type year for him, and obviously that hasn't happened. And so I think the first half of his season was pretty tough. It was pretty rocky. I think he's really improved though, so I look at that improvement as the biggest litmus test on that evaluation for next year. Not how he started, but how he finished, and he's finished it a whole lot better than how he started. And obviously, kind of the natural growth that's going to come with being a second-year guy. You're past your rookie season and all those things. So, is he ever going to be a top 3 left tackle? No, but I think he'll be a good one, and certainly the starter for 2022.
Let's see, Ben and the great Josh Carney wrote this up this morning after the DVE interview. He says, Ben was asked if Moore will be part of the future. He says, I do. I saw last week specifically. I'm probably going to get in trouble for talking about injuries, but who cares? They had Ben hooked up to the truth serum, to the Wonder Woman golden lasso. That probably went way over your head.
I get it enough, I think. I get the reference.
Okay. I'm probably going to get in trouble for talking about injuries, but who cares at this point? Dan Moore gets kind of a high ankle in the first quarter last week. He might have missed one play, maybe. Roethlisberger said he's got heart, he's got passion, he's smart, and he's very, very good. He's going to be the left tackle of the future for this football team, and he's going to be very good at it. Now, how much hyperbole is in there, as we like to say? Probably a little bit there, but I think it comes down to what we've seen on tape so far, and that is a guy that's progressed, a guy that probably still got a little room to go before he hits the ceiling there.
Sure.
Overall, Ben goes on to say he cares about his job. He cares about protecting his quarterback, and that's really what you want in a lineman. He's going to sit there for a long time at left tackle. Now, once again, Ben doesn't make the decisions on this, but this where Ben is at in this process right now. I have a feeling that he's got a lot of confidence in him, even though he won't be the one behind him, behind him having to be protected by him there. So that all passes the sniff test, if you will. And once again, what we said a couple of days ago and what I reiterated on Twitter, and people say, well, move him to the right tackle spot. Why? This is a guy that predominantly played left tackle at Texas A&M. That's the side he's most comfortable on. If you go moving people around, people will find, if you think he's weak at one position that you want to move him to, they will find you in today's NFL. There's not so much left, right tackle. It's tackle now. So you better have two good ones in today's NFL. So within that, Alex, I think we can slam our fist down on the table and say, look, the left tackle spot, at least for 2022, is set, barring injury.
I'm with you. That should be the team's approach this offseason and going into next year. I think Moore just needs to be a little more consistent with his set and his hands and his punch, and just dealing with power, dealing with the bull rush is going to be probably the number one thing for him. I'm going to talk about this summer is just trying to get stronger, showing a better anchor. I know that bull rush can be tough to defend because, guys coming at you full speed and you're trying to sit and anchor and hold that. And it's not always going to look pretty. Rarely does it look pretty unless you're just an elite guy like a Slater of the world. But I think dealing with power is going to be the number one thing. And if he gets that under control, then you're going to have a really good left tackle on the blind side for the future quarterback of this team.
Shall we continue on with I know we're talking about Canada here, but should we continue on with the Roethlisberger truth serum?
We should, because there's an elephant in the room, a conversation to be had about Kendrick Green, and I don't have the exact comment here. Maybe you do, Dave.
I do.
But okay, well, yeah, that's about Kendrick Green's future, and Ben's echoing the thoughts that I get almost daily at this point, and you probably do as well, about should Kendrick Green move to guard, and Ben, in so many words, said that Green has a bright future, but probably at some point should probably shift from center back to guard.
He says KG is a guy that I think we put a lot on this year, and he is correct there. Bless Kendrick's heart, because having to come in and for a Hall of Fame quarterback and right out of the chute. So yes, indeed, Roethlisberger's right there. They put a lot on Kendrick Green.
Game ready, Kendrick Green. Remember?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Roethlisberger goes on to say he's a guy that didn't play much center even in college. Once again, Roethlisberger right on the money with that one. He goes on to say, I truly, look, I'm not a coach. I'm not going to make these decisions. I think at some point KG should probably get moved to guard. And then he goes on to dress that, put lipstick on the pig. he goes, Ben has gotten good at this in his 18 years. I think at some point KG should probably get moved to guard, and he will dominate this league at guard because he just has that fire and passion. You can't have that at you can't have that at guard, because you can't really have that at center. You have to be cerebral and not try to get into fights after every play, Roethlisberger added with a chuckle. I just think those guys are going to be ones that are blocking for Naj and do some amazing things here for a long time. So he identified the pig, and then he tried to put some lipstick on the pig there. So, look, the tape, men lie, women lie, the tape don't lie. Plain and simple there. And Alex and I have talked a lot about Kendrick Green. Alex has had fun with the comments, and appropriate so made by Mike Tomlin, inferring that Kendrick Green was NFL ready at center position. He is anything but that. We have also talked several times on this show how get into 5-6 games into next season before we start throwing the babies out with the bath water here. But it's kind of damning here what is happening at the end of the season, if you ask me, with Kendrick Green. Now, yeah, he's the calf injury, and now on COVID, he can't control those kind of things. But those things are kind of, I guess, convenient. I would have to label as, because it's given it, look what happened. And once again, J.C. Hostenhauer was on the ground. His performance against the Browns won't get him many awards, but it was better than Kendrick Green all season, if you ask me. And to me, right now, where we sit with this thing, Alex, as we head into the final regular season game, is there's been a lot of damning things here that's happened with Kendrick Green over the last couple of weeks. And when your quarterback, says we put a lot on you, I'm not the coach, I don't make these decisions, and I'm out of here, deuces. But out on the way out, maybe Kendrick Green should probably get moved to guard. I don't know what more you need than that.
Yeah, I mean, so Ben's essentially saying that Green should move to guards because he's like an angry guy, angry disposition, and that'll be more useful at guard, where you don't have to worry about making. I'm trying to figure out exactly what Ben's reasoning there is of why he thinks Green would fit better at guard. So he's not even saying it's because he's more comfortable there. He's saying that it's because he can't
play center.
That's what he's maybe implying. But he's saying in the comments, at least, that it'll allow Green to be more physical and not have to worry about focused on line calls and setting the protection and stuff like that. He can just be a really nasty player. You can still be a nasty player at center. There's a lot of nasty centers in the NFL. So I'm not sure if that holds water. I understand the instinct, moving away from just what Ben has said, but just kind of the thought at large about, putting Green in a more comfortable spot. And there's no doubt that being a rookie playing a position you haven't played a lot before in college is only going to make a difficult situation all the more difficult. I just think overall, unless you talk about the actual issues, what is Green
take your watch off, Alex. And, every time the pastor takes off his watch, that means look out. All right. So, so
some
take
Southern
your watch off
references
here.
I don't really understand.
I grew up Roman Catholic, so when Father LeCarry used to take off his watch, that meant sit back.
What does that mean? Sit back for what?
I mean, you're going to get a start. You're going to get a sermon? Yeah. And Father LeCarry, old Roman Catholic. When I grew up, just a kid, Father LeCarry was hellfire and brimstone, Roman Catholic priest. Okay, so that guy would light into some sermons bad, man. I mean, he'd scare you as a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, you walk out of that church thinking, well, that's it, I'm going to hell. In other words, you would get a stern talking to whenever Father LeCarry took off his watch there. So take off your watch and give a sermon here.
Well, I don't know if I'll be able to. I don't want people to worry about they're going to hell after listening about Kendrick Green. So I don't know if that's the takeaway I want here. But to the point, whether you want to talk about playing him at center, moving him to guard, the issue is technical. What specific things does he have to do to get better? It's the technique, it's the hand use, it's winning early, it's not allowing defenders to control you. Because if he can't win early, he's going to get pushed around. He doesn't have maybe the hand use and the length and the overall size to combat some of the situations where he loses early. So regardless of where you want to play him, you have to talk about more specific things about how he actually has to get better, not what position he should be playing. Because if his technique does not improve, I don't care if he's playing center or guard, he'll be playing left bench. Because if your technique does not improve, he will not improve overall. And I don't see smaller guards working well in Pittsburgh. What small guard has thrived in Pittsburgh before? Really, none of them. They're bigger guys. That's why they signed Trey Turner when DeCastro went down. They wanted a bigger guy. You think about J.C. Hostenhauer. We talk about how he's played better at center. He's a much better center than he is at guard because he's a smaller guy. When Stefan Wisniewski played guard, in that one game last year, he struggled a lot because he's a smaller, undersized guy who lacks power and overall ability to anchor and go up against some of these big guys that are going to be covering Green up more if he's moving to guard. So again, I understand the instinct there. And listen, if you sit there and say Green's not going to be our center, then you're going to have to try something else and try some new position, and maybe becomes a versatile interior, swing man playing both guard spots and playing center. So I'm not ruling it out, but I think the center guard gets a little too binary because we have to talk about what things he actually has to do as an offensive lineman in terms of your technique to get better. Technique is the number one thing he's got to improve upon to have any chance, regardless of what position you want to play him at.
Even the Chris Kimowatu was like 6'3", right? Like 6'3.5", if memory serves me. So
yeah, it was a wider body. He was a big guy, pretty thick dude.
He was like a bowling ball though, right?
Yeah.
And he had enough short area quickness too, where now here's the thing about Chris Kimowatu. He also, if you remember back, Alex, and I was trying to remember back, and I jolted back into some tape not too long ago. He was on the ground quite a bit.
Yeah, he was by no means a great guard. He was pretty inconsistent, especially in pass pro, but I think he was a bigger guy than Kendrick Green.
And right, he was a bigger guy, but by almost, I think, about an inch and a half or so.
Yeah.
But
and then weight, he was like 330. I don't know, he's a big guy.
Right, and look, here's the thing about Chris Kimowatu, when he pulled, if he hit his mark, look out, man. But if he didn't, he's going through the wall behind. There was no. If he missed, he missed. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I remember about him. And Kendrick's on the ground a lot more than Kimowatu is. And we obviously we haven't seen a lot of Kendrick Green pulling, but if you're going to play in the NFL and you're going to play guard, you're going to have to be able to pull on top of it. You're going to have to be able to reach block some of these guys. And, I have said this right from the start. If he cannot survive at center in the NFL, then he's not going to be able to survive at guard. You're going to have a lot of the same issues there. And I think in so many words, and bless Ben's heart, because he's very good at trying to, call somebody a pig and then put lipstick on him. I think that's exactly what Ben did here, saying, he's going to dominate this league at, I just said that he can't play center, but he's going to dominate this league at guard. Well, why? Because you have to be cerebral and not try to get into fights after every play, and then a chuckle. I mean, cut that clip out, because I think we heard all we got to hear there. Best chance, I think, and look, anything can happen. I'll root for it. I'll root for anything, because I hate to see this team burn draft picks like that. Yeah, try to move him to guard and see what happens. I don't think you're going to like the results there. I don't think you're going to cut him either. But if you go into the 2022 season with Kendrick Green as your starting center or guard, then something probably has happened that you did not want to happen along in there, and then Katie barred the door.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, will this team still have faith going into year two? Because they have to recognize, as Ben did, how much they put on this guy's play. Like, he was put in a very difficult situation.
Agreed. No argument from me on that.
And in theory, you should see progression year two, just as we talked about for Dan Moore. I mean, to what degree of progression you're going to get, who's to say? But, he'll be more comfortable. He'll be a full year in the NFL, go over tape study. He's not the wide-eyed rookie anymore, replacing Pouncey and all those stories and those kinds of things. So it is, reasonable to assume there is going to be improvement. And again, if his technique cleans up, then he'll be a better player for sure. That's going to be the big thing for me. I just don't want fans to get confused that guard's going to be like the magic bullet to save his career, that simply moving him over one spot is going to turn his whole career around. If his career turns around, whether that's at center or guard, it's going to be because of the technical things he's doing to win early in reps. It's going to allow him to utilize that strength that he actually has, and be in control, be the aggressor with these blocks, as opposed to kind of catching some of these blocks.
Look, he had some nice tape at Illinois, some snaps at left guard, some really physical, nasty stuff. Putting big old defensive linemen on the ground and all like that. His nastiness has never, in my opinion, been in question. When it comes to that, what comes into question is there are some occasions on tape where you see him be able to effectively reach a defensive end. He does a better job, I think, reaching outside than he does inside, at least at the guard snaps and all. But there, what were the things you were worried about? The anchor, against the pass rush for starters. And then the other stuff was him being on the ground way too much, the over aggressiveness and all like that. That stuff's not going to go away, Alex, just by moving him over one spot on. You hope it does. Man, it would be the greatest comeback in a while when it comes to maybe a first 3-round drafted offensive lineman in Pittsburgh. But I think they looked at him. I don't know what they were thinking. Evidently, Mike Tomlin thinks he's NFL ready and all like that. Maybe they thought, well, look what happened to DeMarty Dawson. Undersized kind of guard, moving to center, struck gold that way. Well, this ain't the same. And we talked about the other. What's funny about that is we were talking about Warren Williams the other day, right? From
88.
From 88 being the team MVP that year. You know who was in that draft class?
Was
DeMonty Dawson. Yeah.
That's funny.
There. So all I got, well, people are tired of us harping on this and all, but it's going to be a huge undertaking to make an NFL center out of this kid, just as much as it's going to be an undertaking to see if he can stick at center.
Yeah, and like I said, just small guards in Pittsburgh just don't seem to work. I can't think of the last small guard that had success. They're bigger guys. They're the Fosters. They're the Castros, the Fanekas of the world. Usually bigger guys are the guys that have success, at least in Pittsburgh, playing left or right guard.
Man, who gets the blame for this one?
Well, I think, again, if you take Tomlin at his word, there's a misevaluation about Green being, game ready, day one ready, because Green was not. And that's not me just saying that. That was pretty much the book on Green whenever he, all the draft nicks that, viewed and scouted him coming out of Illinois. Adrian Clem was at his pro day, so I wondered did Clem come back with a really good report and was really excited about, him, and did that push the evaluation? Obviously, Tomlin and Colbert are the final decision makers. The buck stops with them, but you wonder what Clem report was at that pro day that might have pushed the team to draft Kendrick Green.
Yeah, it makes you wonder for sure. All right, but Ben, once again, those comments Ben made about those two players, Moore and Green, are going to be talked about here for the next couple of weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Speaking of guards, Matt Canada spoke about another guard, John LeGlue, and talked about how he, his play and what he's been able to bring to the team this year. And Canada really lauded LeGlue's effort and passion. Said, quote, "I think his energy, you feel that. I think our group has felt that when he's come in and played. He plays with such great passion and effort, and the tape really bears it out. I mean, any sort of downfield play, whether it's maybe a pile or a gang tackle in the back or whoever's getting stood up, you see big number 77 running in just to kind of be around that and falling on footballs to pop out at the very end of plays and stuff like that." And so I think Canada basically said that, listen, athletically, talent-wise, he's pretty limited, but the dude really gives a lot of effort and heart, and that kind of makes up for some of the overall limitations in his game athletically and physically, although I think he actually played a pretty good game from a baseline standpoint against the Browns Monday night. But LeGlue is certainly making the most of that opportunity, his first playing time this season.
I think we agreed the other day that this is a guy that maybe they found your next kind of swing backup guy, at least for the next season here, a depth guy overall. And you don't want to see him have to play tackle, I don't think, at the NFL level, but he could potentially do it. Probably don't want to see him play center either, but the Steelers like players with that versatility. LeGlue, I think, comes off, at least to hear the coach, as a very smart, intelligent guy, understands concepts and roles and all. Fun to hear him talk, briefly in the limited time as well, too. This is a guy that we think is going to stick on this roster in 2022, right? But probably not as a starter.
Yeah, I would view him as potentially even kind of being the new Joe Haig if you were to ever maybe beat him out then the next summer or something like that. Kind of a versatile guy, a bit of a bigger guy. LeGlue can't play left tackle like Haig can, but I wonder if there's kind of that more Swiss Army knife that I can kind of see the comparison between those two guys.
I mean, who would you rather start at guard right now in a pinch, LeGlue or Kendrick Green?
Oh, Green. I mean, I would want to see Green get some reps at guard, I guess, and see how he looks. But I mean, LeGlue, I guess, is the guy right now, just because I've seen some of him at guard.
You have comfort in him.
Comfort, yeah. There you go.
Right.
I think anything else Matt Canada had to say? I don't have the transcript in front of me, but I was just kind of going through the stuff we wrote about, and those seem to be the most notable things.
Talked about changes Chris Morgan made, additions and subtractions. He says, obviously, he gets a lot of credit because he stepped into the role and we were able to play well. We were more productive in the running game. Simo has been very involved the whole time. We didn't change anything dramatically in our approach, but I do think his energy and certainly the guys responded, so certainly appreciative of what he did. Happy that way. I think you already hit on the Dan Moore stuff. I think he mentioned the 17th game on rookies holding up, just kind of standard fare there.
Should mention that J.C. Haas and I said one change Morgan made was bringing in tight ends and running backs into the O-line meetings to kind of bring that and build out that broader picture of the run game. And so that seemed to help whenever the backs have a better feel for, what the O-line is doing and vice versa, and same with the tight end. So that's one change. You could certainly wonder why that wasn't happening before, but one that seemed to be paying off for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and you would think they would whatever they did last week, they're going to repeat it to try to produce kind of a similar outcome there. I obviously asked a lot about Najee and gave Najee a lot of praise for what he did and what he's done this season, and I think that kind of sums up the Matt Canada interview there.
Yeah, there you go. So Mike Tomlin again subbing in. I was really hoping to hear from Keith Butler maybe one last time. I was kind of bummed, and obviously hope he's feeling okay. But I was hoping for one last dadgum to kind of send this out. But Mike Tomlin speaking about Isaiah Loudermilk and said the slow progression he's been on has been good for him. Obviously, Loudermilk has played more than probably anyone, including the team, anticipated, but he hasn't played the snaps that Najee Harris or Pat Frymuth or Moore or Green has played, and so. You've kind of been able to avoid the rookie wall that way because it's been a slower ramp up for Loudermilk throughout the season. And again, his progression overall has been pretty impressive.
He also talked about, and look, he's not wrong there. I think we've kind of talked about that as far as with Loudermilk as well too. And I think it is a bit exciting, maybe as a Steelers fan. As agitated as people might be at this point with the selection of Kendrick Green. Well. I maybe they found something here in Loudermilk here, and I think Tomlin put it great that it's probably good to some degree that he did have to play some, but it's probably also good that he hasn't had to play 800 snaps, on top of it. So I think there's a lot of truth there in what Mike Tomlin had to say about Loudermilk. I asked about Ahkello Witherspoon, and to sum up. The Steelers' thoughts on Ahkello Witherspoon is, and we've said this, special teams, his inability to play special teams is what prevented him from getting a helmet right out of the chute there, and the whole moving train and those kind of things. But once the guy got a break in so many aspects and made a couple of plays, they can't take the helmet away from him now. So. This is one of those things where the Steelers may have lucked up. I hate to use that, but let's call a spade here, because Ahkello Witherspoon, if Joe Hayden wouldn't have suffered that foot injury, would we even be in a conversation talking about Ahkello Witherspoon and maybe parlaying that into a nice contract during the offseason?
Certainly not to the degree of conversation we're having now. I think he would have played because James Pierre struggles and some sub package and some dime personnel type stuff. And so I think Witherspoon would have played, but would he have gotten the consistent opportunity that he's been able to display? Probably not. So sure, certainly, as Tomlin says, what one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. And it's just been Witherspoon's opportunity to get paid this offseason.
You know what runs through my head the last couple of this week specifically when Mike Tomlin talking about Ahkello Witherspoon. You know that meme of that dude walking down the street with his girlfriend?
Oh, and what looks back or something?
Yeah. Well, Mike Tomlin's walking with Joe Hayden there, and Ahkello Witherspoon's the other pretty girl walking the other direction. Mike Tomlin's turning around looking at Ahkello Witherspoon, and Joe Hayden's kind of got that look on his face like, what that's what kind of flashed through my head there. And really, I see it exactly that way right now. Ahkello Witherspoon is a shiny, good-looking girl right now, and Joe Hayden's, on the COVID list right now, and hasn't had a great season. Obviously, missed a bulk of games with a foot injury there. So sometimes opportunity is what players need, and that makes the difference. And I kind of wonder what would have happened though if Hayden wouldn't have missed those block of games there, and we'd be talking about, well, there goes Ahkello Witherspoon riding off into the sunset for nothing, Yeah.
And I feel for Hayden. Yeah, I do for sure. I feel for Hayden, though. It looks like 2 straight years he'll finish the regular season on the COVID list. I mean, again, he could test out for Sunday's game, but probably won't happen. So, I thought, it's a guy that could be playing his final game in Pittsburgh. I think Trey Dulac said, don't, discount a return. And I'm not going to say there's no chance of it happening, but I think the odds are better of him leaving than him re-signing with the team.
I mean, you can't pay both of them, have both of them start, I don't think, along with what you're paying Sutton over there, right? So somebody's going to get the contract and somebody's going to start. The other guy is not. So make up your mind, because if the Steelers don't want Witherspoon, somebody will want him based on the way he's played these last couple games.
For sure. But if Hayden is gone, the intangible aspect, I'm not saying you have to bring him back for it, but the intangible, there's going to be overall just big leadership voids for this team next year. If Hayden's gone, Ben's gone, you just have a lot of young guys, and obviously there's still going to be some leaders with Cam Hayward and, TJ Watt, the way that he works, and guys will assume some of those roles, but there are going to be, and there already has been with the offensive line leaving, this past offseason, some big leadership vacuums that guys are going to have to really step up and fill those voids in 2022.
And kind of the quote of the Mike Tomlin press conference, good outside linebackers are the engine in our car.
Very classic Tomlinism. Yeah, you think about the Steelers' best defenses have always had great pass rushers, great outside linebackers, whether that's Kevin Green, Greg Lloyd, Joey Porter, James Harrison, Lamar Woodley, TJ Watt. Since they've switched to a 3-4, they've always had great edge rushers, and their best defenses have when they've had dominant edge rushers playing, and having elite seasons the way that TJ Watt is right now.
Absolutely. And I think they've got as we talked on the show the other day, I think they got a couple good ones, a nice duo. And if they get some more progression out of Alex Highsmith next year, this could potentially be the top pass rushing duo. Well, like you said, the Gretzky brothers and all like that. I think it could be more than the Gretzky brothers.
Yeah, I was saying it's not going to be that Highsmith is going to pull his weight. It won't be Watt is 99% of the time, but a good compliment. I think Highsmith is evolving into, especially recently, the quip that Tomlin had. Someone asked, "Do you miss being DC?" And Tomlin said, "I like my paycheck," as head coach. And so that was a funny comment. Yeah, Tomlin did not confirm who's going to be calling plays if Butler's not available in this game. So the decisions could be made at the 11th hour. Obviously, I think Tomlin can easily assume that role already kind of does. Maybe Terrell Austin, maybe Carl Dunbar. Someone asked about Denzel Martin, which is interesting.
Somebody probably knows something there that they can't say or something, but Denzel Martin's going to be your outside linebackers coach after Keith Butler's gone.
Yeah. Well, does that mean Dunbar gets promoted or something? Is he going to be the DC calling plays? Because Dunbar's kind of working with the outside linebackers primarily, now as a defensive line coach plus a edge guy. But Denzel has always worked with those guys. He's listed as the official assistant outside linebackers coach. You watch him at camp, that's what he does. So I'm not sure why someone asked the question, has he taken on more of a role? Because that's just what he's been doing.
Right. So I don't know if we'll circle back. Yeah, I don't know if we'll circle back to these comments or not at some point. There it feels like somebody, I don't know, either that or they just didn't know, but yeah,
well, something's going on, because I promise a reporter was urging to ask about Denzel Martin coming into that day, but they saw something.
Right.
All right, Dave, anything else from any other press conferences that you want to go over, whether that's Canada or Tomlin or any players who have spoken over the last 48 hours?
Adams, right? Montravius Adams, I think he likes where he's at right now, and that's the guy that we talked about possibly getting re-signed. He's saying all the right things as well too. So I think it's probably just a matter of time during the offseason before you get something done with both Adams and Witherspoon.
What do you think Adams' price tag is on that? It can't be too terribly high.
$3 million, 2.5, $3 million, probably right around in there.
Like 2-year deal. What do you think?
Yeah, because they'll want to do that because that's what they like to do anyway there, and half of it. It'll probably be straight. Let's say it's let's have a little fun here. 2 years. 2 years. What number should it be? 2 years, $5 million, with $3 million will be earned in 2022 as part of salary / signing bonus total. So that would be my guess. 2 years. What did I say? 2 years, $5 million, somewhere between $5.5 million, with him getting $3 million in his pocket in 2022. Let's see how close I get there.
All right. And his role for that would be potential starting nose tackle. I guess with the Alu situation just is murky in terms of, is he coming back? I assume that he is. It's just otherwise,
that's a depth signing to me. That alleviates you maybe along with, we'll see what happens with one of the Davis brothers. Or to me, that kind of would give you, especially if Alu comes back, that you don't have to address the defensive tackle position, nose tackle position in the draft.
Yeah, you shouldn't. And then obviously we'll have to see what happens with Tuitt, one of the big offseason questions. But, I mean, you'll have Hayward back, you'll have Wormley back, Loudermilk progressing, Adams back under this hypothetical re-signing, Alu back. You're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I mean, once again, Adams was on a foot out of the league for a reason there. So I don't want to paint him something that he's not, but he's got a good get off. And I think as a true nose tackle, I think you could do worse for a backup there.
Yeah, in this one gap penetrating world, I don't think his anchor is particularly great, but the guy can penetrate and shoot and play in sub package, and I think it fits. And as the Steelers like to say, they don't care about how you got here. You're here, you're playing well, and that's all that really matters.
And I think, didn't you one of you wrote up that he considers himself more than just a nose tackle as well too? Now, do I think he's a 4-eye 5 tech kind of guy? No, but he could definitely be a sub package defensive tackle rusher. Yeah, I think
that was his point. He's saying he's a 1, he's a 3, he can play sub package roles. He's not just like a run stuffing, Casey Hampton 0 tech kind of guy, and he's not. He can be much more than that.
Okay.
All right, Dave, I think we should take a break here and talk to our good friend John Eisenberg, Baltimore Ravens columnist, has a good article out there on BaltimoreRavens.com talking about kind of the shape and the changing of the guard in the AFC North. I encourage you guys to read. You can also follow him on Twitter at @BMoreEisenberg, as an author of many books, including The League, a book both Dave and I have bought and enjoy very much. We'll get his perspective on the Ravens, so we'll take a break and come back with John.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 18 of the NFL season. It is Ravens versus Steelers part 2, this time in Baltimore. And that means we're closing out the regular season with a regular guest, a favorite of most of you, we know for sure, just by the listenership and the comments that we get. Obviously, one of the favorites of mine and Alex's as well. Great conversation, at least twice a year. Too bad it's probably not going to be 3 times this year. But with that, we welcome back to the show the great John Eisenberg, who covers the Baltimore Ravens for BaltimoreRavens.com. You can follow John on the Twitter machine at @BMoreEisenberg. Also, he's got a couple of great books that he's written that you can find on Amazon real easy. One of those being The League, which I bet a lot of you just got for Christmas this year or should have. With that, John, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and it's great to be back.
Great to have you back here, John. Look, looking back at it seemed like just a few weeks ago, which it was, that we had you on the show. We're talking about Ravens Steelers, the first meeting there. We're talking about how the Ravens really were primed in a prime position to win the AFC North there, even throughout all the injuries that they had up until that point. They obviously went on to lose that game to the Steelers due to a kind of a couple of weird coaching decisions in that game, I think would be the appropriate thing to say. And then obviously since then, the Ravens have had issues. They've lost Lamar Jackson to an ankle injury. That has hurt. They've lost a few other more players. I guess the place to start here is what has happened to the Ravens since we last talked to you.
It has definitely has to be the craziest Ravens season that I've ever seen. Almost, there's a stat going around. I think all but 4 of the games have been undecided going into the last minute, or have been at least up for grabs, winnable or losable going into the last minute of play. So there's been a couple games that got out of hand, almost none, though, generally. And so what happened early in the season, they were winning those games. They've dealt with injuries all season, bad ones. I mean, the whole running back room was wiped out. Most of the cornerbacks were wiped out. They were dealing with that pretty well early in the year, winning those close games. And they kept playing the close games, including the one in Pittsburgh. But they stopped winning them. They stopped making the plays. And really, except for a couple of weeks ago, they went into Cincinnati. They had COVID on top of the injuries, really did not have a lineup of that was worth playing that game hardly, and they got whipped in that game. But other than that, they've kept playing close games. The Packers, just on, but they've lost them. And so they've been competitive. They've been tough. They've been playing without Lamar. So they're keeping it close, but it's definitely a cloud over the season.
A lot has been made with John Harbaugh, especially as of late, really since the game against the Ravens on. Look, I am an analytics guy. I'm into all those fourth down bots and things of that nature. I get a lot of the go for 2 type situations now, and really am on board with quite a few of those. But a few of those, especially the one against the Steelers that first time around, it was a bit of a head scratcher to me, and I believe Harbaugh gave the reason because the cornerbacks were secondary was kind of decimated, but you got the best kicker, or the best kicker in the last 10 years at least in the NFL in Tucker there. That alone should lead you to kick the extra point. What has been I imagine that a lot of people are really, really on Harbaugh right now for several of these decisions over the course of the last 4 games or so.
Yeah, it's definitely been controversial and really interesting. And as you allude to there, a lot to talk about, a lot of numbers. And what's really interesting about some of those, whether they kick or go for it on several of these decisions, the analytic numbers are not a whole lot different.
Right.
When you get down to like the bottom line one is the percentage chances of winning if you kick or go for 2. They're both right. There was I believe that it was the Pittsburgh game,
right?
Both just under 50%, 48% and 46% was the other one. So and Harbaugh, what deflects the criticism a little bit, he's like, this is what we're doing. I mean, and what's not being said is that he did say we're low on cornerbacks in that game. He doesn't have great faith in his defense. I mean, he just doesn't. And so he feels like, well, certainly when they played the Packers here a few weeks ago and they had a chance to win that game in regulation with a 2-point conversion or let Aaron Rodgers get back on the field, he's like, well, I'm going for it. I'm going for this. And so the players are behind it. Certainly it hasn't worked out, and it's changed the whole arc of the season, and you can criticize him for it, and he'll take the criticism. I mean, that's the way it goes. But he's just has never sort of said, oh, well, maybe I should have thought about it. I mean, he's like, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to play, and this is what we needed to do this year with a team that was not that strong, decimated by injuries. And so it didn't work out. That's the way it goes.
John, I don't believe we know for sure who's going to start a quarterback Sunday for Baltimore. It looks like it's going to be Tyler Huntley with Lamar still battling that ankle sprain. Give us the background on Huntley, how he made the team as an undrafted guy, and what are the similarities and differences between him and Lamar whenever Huntley's in the game?
Well, Huntley's been a real success story for them. He was an undrafted rookie in 2020 out of Utah. But if you look at his numbers, he's a South Florida kid. He went to Utah. He actually played against Lamar in high school. He had a great career at Utah, and it's a little shocking that he was undrafted because he was a really good college quarterback, all Pac-12, ahead of Justin Herbert, and just really, really strong college player. And so he comes here, and of course he's raw, but he does have a similar skill set to Lamar. He's got a nice arm. He may be a better passer. I mean, he's got real nice mechanics there. And he's agile. He's not the same. He's not the game breaker like Lamar, but he's good with his feet. So they coached him up a little bit. And when he wound up having to play this year, they definitely changed the playbook for him a little bit. It's a real short passing game, a lot more possession passing, but he's real good at it. Lamar was struggling this year. Teams were really throwing the blitzes at him, and including that game in Pittsburgh. And he was having trouble. His decision making was a little slow. He was getting sacked, and it just wasn't going that great. And Huntley, in some respects, the offense has been better because he gets rid of the ball. He's very decisive in his, the ball's not sitting around. He makes it is a little more short passing. I think he's averaging about 1.5 yards less per attempt than Lamar. But the ball moves. They've been moving the ball steadily. And so what they didn't do, in last week's game was they didn't finish those drives. And against the Rams, they should have won that game. They moved the ball well. They dominated time of possession. They've been doing that week after week, dominating time of possession, but they're not finishing the drives.
That's really interesting commentary. Does that shake the confidence at all in Lamar when you hear that Huntley is doing some things more effectively, more efficiently than, a first round, hyper talented quarterback like Lamar Jackson?
Well, that's I think we're going to have some interesting conversations here in the offseason. Lamar's the quarterback, and Lamar's Lamar, and he's done so much in this league. It's been great. He wasn't having his best run of play there, but right before he got hurt. But it is good to see. It's interesting to see how Huntley has approached it, with just being very decisive, picking up blitzes. He's good at deciding when he needs to get out of the pocket and run and make things happen. Just as far, I mean, he's been very, very, very solid. So, there's no question who the future is here. It's Lamar. Huntley has done a couple things where Lamar made some mistakes, but Huntley has certainly on the 2-point conversion to win the game against the Packers. He missed an open receiver in the back of the end zone. Hollywood Brown was there. Last week against the Rams, it was an ill-advised interception right before halftime that really let the Rams back in that game. And he's missed some open guys here and there. So there's a little bit. He is raw. He's younger, less experienced. So there is that going on. But he definitely brings some skill to the table.
With the passing game, I know it basically runs through Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown, and those guys have made up, 50% of the catches, I think 54% of the yards and 70-something% of the touchdowns. But Rashad Bateman's been really interesting as a rookie. Got hurt early this year, has kind of caught that moving train and is third on the team with 44 receptions. How would you evaluate overall his play this year, especially considering that slow start it got off to?
Yeah, his play has been good. Bateman, I think they hit on that draft pick. He looks like an AFC North receiver that you can settle in with. Good hands, good routes. And so he's run a lot of underneath stuff this year. Not so much. He's got some speed and he can get downfield, but they're not really doing that, especially with Huntley. But he's working the underneath routes. He's got over 40 catches now at this point with a very slow start. So he's in play, and I think you're looking at a young man that's second year will be pretty good. He's definitely a pro and a good receiver, and the shock of all shocks in Baltimore is we're going to enter a draft season when the Ravens don't need a wide receiver because that's all they talk about. And so suddenly they don't. I mean, they've been hitting that hard. And, they got a few other guys, Devin Duvernay and James Prochet. And I think they're set there. So, and Bateman really solidifies it.
Yeah, you could have a guy in Miles Boykin, and I think there was a chance maybe that Miles Boykin didn't even make that team this past year, but he did. But I mean, they've got him pretty stacked over there right now, so they'll have some tough decisions there next summer. There, back to Tyler Huntley real quick, and a lot of Steeler fans I think are looking at him, especially based on what Mike Tomlin said this past week, and maybe licking their chops when it comes to Tyler Huntley and saying, well, maybe this could be the mobile quarterback that the Steelers, could potentially infuse into that offense starting next year. But I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think Huntley's going to be an exclusive rights free agent this offseason. That means he's super easy to retain with just a minimum tender offer. And then the year after that, he would be a restricted free agent. So they really they've kind of pulled a Steelers thing here where they've got him by the short ones here overall. But within that, with Huntley being able to be on the field and show what he's been able to do, might there be a little bit of, angst with Huntley because of being kind of a victim of the system here and saying, look, I'm not going to have a future here because, you're probably going to lock up Lamar Jackson and I'm going to have to be the backup to him for at least the next 2 years. I guess what I'm getting at is here, could we see the Ravens potentially try to move Huntley for something? Maybe not necessarily this next year, but maybe the year after that.
I think so. It's a really interesting situation. And, the big issue on the table in this coming off season is Lamar's contract and what are they going to do? And this season didn't help Lamar. He started off well. He slowed down. He was struggling. Then he got hurt. And so you just don't know how that plays into it, what that means for it all. He's not negotiating from the strongest point. Let's put it that way. And Huntley, everything you said is correct. And Huntley is a tradable asset at this point. No question about it. They're certainly not going to trade him to the Steelers, and watch him come back and beat him twice a year. I don't think they're going to do it in this offseason. They will be able to retain him certainly through this year. And I think, who knows how this is going to play out? What if they can't sign Lamar? What if that doesn't happen?
Right.
What if Lamar plays hardball and they can't narrow the gap? I think everything's on the table with this, with the Ravens and Lamar and Huntley and who's going to be the quarterback in 2 years. It's certainly Lamar is their guy, but it's not just that simple, as you well know, with the finances and what Lamar wants. And I think you just have to sit back and let it play out a little bit. And the Ravens are in a good position, really, with two quarterbacks.
John, I'm a huge contract nerd. I'm a huge cap nerd. I built Steelers Depot around kind of having a lot of knowledge of that aspect and kind of specifying in that, over the years. So nobody knows his situation probably more than I do. And look, they have him under contract for around $23.1 million next year. What does your gut though tell you that they're going to do with him? Because he's obviously looking at probably wanting to get that Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes kind of money. But as you rightly stated, there's a lot of more questions about him than answers, I think, right now coming out of this season. Do the Ravens pull a kind of a Flacco on him and say, look, play out your 20. Obviously, I think Lamar won't have problems finding, affording groceries at $23.1 million in 2022. He might not be the happiest cat, though, when it comes to that kind of stuff. What do you think is going to happen? Will they just let him ride that out and say, okay, earn the franchise tag in 2023, or do you think they will indeed lock him up to a mega deal that will kind of rival, I guess, Patrick Mahomes?
Well, the Ravens are definitely a stay-the-course franchise. They like to lock up their young players, and they've always been pretty good at figuring out the ones to lock up. And this is certainly a case. And I wish I could tell you 2 months ago. I've written about this a lot, and I've always said it was a matter of when, not if.
Okay.
I will say I haven't written that in a couple months because I don't know. I think it's, you know, I mean, there's no doubt that probably, I mean, they hit a home run with the Lamar draft pick in 2018. He's led them to great heights, a lot of wins, and they're thrilled with it. It's changed the arc of the franchise. You do have to analyze things on a year-to-year basis. And, you know, wasn't I mean, my gut tells me that, you know, they don't let the emotion of the moment get to them. And so they're probably aware that, yeah, Lamar's our guy in the long run. We'll sign him, try to make it work. I'm sure they would love to, coming off this season, not pay him as much. You know, are they going to pay top dollar? They may not want to. So I don't know. So it becomes a little tricky. You know, are they just going to give him a Dak Prescott contract? Well, I can see them doing that, but I don't think it's the sure thing that it was a few months ago.
You know, I really respect you saying, and that's why you're one of our favorites, because, you know, people think that, you know, people that cover the team as close to that, they have all the answers there, that they slam dunk, this is the way it's going to be and all like that. And look, Alex and I get tons of questions sometimes on this show. And I think the most honest thing to do when it comes to certain, you know, educated kind of situations like that, where you don't really know. And no. I think it's okay to say that, and then kind of quantify it with, you know, this is the way, you know, like you said, like your gut feeling a couple of months ago was one way, but now you haven't written that. So certainly do respect that side of the answer for you there. And I'm with you. I don't know at this point, John, which way this one's going to go. I would have thought, you know, 8 weeks ago that, yeah, they're going to lock him up, but now I'm not so sure they don't take the Joe Flacco route with him. Looking ahead to the game on Sunday there, a lot of beat up offensive linemen, it looks like, on the Ravens there, although it does look like most of them, I think, are going to play. I think the big question mark, I guess, would probably be at right tackle there. What are your feelings about the injury report, the way it's going to shake out this week?
Well, Pat McCary, he's been on the injury report. It's sort of the story of the year here. He's been on it a lot. He played last week. He played pretty well. Bradley Bozeman missed the game last week he had food poisoning. I think you're going to see, Ben Cleveland's on the list, Ben Powers. There's a lot. So, generally they've had four, the bulk of their O-line is there on Sunday. So, you know, you'll have Villanueva at left tackle. You have Zeitler at right guard. Bozeman will be back at center. Something tells me McCary will be at right tackle. So the question is left guard, which has sort of been a question all year, Ben Powers, or Ben Cleveland. And, that's probably the question mark. And they could pull up someone from the practice squad. They've been doing that left and right with guys this year, but, probably one of those guys. I don't know that will be the red flag, that decides this game.
John, Mike Tomlin had a really interesting comment on Patrick Queen earlier this week, called him arguably the best linebacker in the AFC North. How would you describe Queen's development? I know the start of the season was rocky, but it seems like he's really playing good ball as of late.
Yeah, they moved into the weak side primarily about week 6 because he really was struggling. And he's definitely been better. He's been good. Queen, I think a lot of the fans in Baltimore would say, really, the best in the AFC North, because he's been something of a lightning rod for criticism. He doesn't get good grades from Pro Football Focus. He misses some tackles. He's fast. He runs right by some tackles. But he definitely has played better the second half of the season. He's around the ball more, and he's been good. This is a guy that has been on the field. Some draft picks really struggled and don't get on the field, and you can just see it's going to be disappointing. I'm talking first round draft picks. Queen has been on the field from day one. He was really young. He was really raw when he got here. Mm-hmm. And so it's just taken longer for him to really develop, I think, he is a 3-down linebacker now. And because he just absolutely was a liability in pass coverage, and he still is to some degree, but he's doing better. And I think it's a little bit of a slow boil with a first round pick, but I think that he's certainly makes a lot of tackles. He's around the ball, and you'll see his number.
Well, when you're watching the Steelers linebackers play this year, the off-ball guys, everything else looks pretty good, I suppose, by comparison. My last question for Jonathan, I'll let Dave finish things out. And you have a good article on Ravens.com about kind of the changing of the guards in the AFC North. It kind of references some of the great memories between the Steelers and Ravens rivalry at its peak. I know in the article you mentioned, Suggs and Nada and Ben and all those moments, but is there one particular moment that sticks out to you as a favorite for you in the Steelers-Ravens Ben era, 2004 to present day, that kind of sticks out above the rest of favorite memory between those two teams?
Well, I mean, there's a couple with Ben. Certainly the one with Ben, the game that he won, it was a Sunday night game. It was the one where Nada broke his nose.
Right.
And it was like 2 degrees in Baltimore. And, he's got his nose broken in the first. And he's coming at what I will always remember. And this is Ben, and I'm just as a rival. What a great rival. What an incredible an opponent. And that was a game where he's coming across the field in the last 5 minutes. The Ravens have beaten him up all game. They've broken his nose, sacked him. And suddenly here he is in the last 3 or 4 minutes coming across. It was like coming across the ice, up in the North Pole. It was cold and he's got stuff running down his nose. And of course he drives and wins the game. And that's been in a nutshell. Such a devastating guy to play for many years. And I give him great credit. And, another in that era, a great game when the Ravens went into Pittsburgh. I believe it was 2011, another Sunday night game, regular season game. And they won the game with Flacco, I think, drove them over 90 yards in the last minute and in the last couple of minutes, and then wins the game with a pass to Torrey Smith. That was, I mean, you can see why the Ravens won the Super Bowl with Flacco if you watch that drive. That was very, very hard to execute at Heinz Field on a Sunday night. And so those are games that stand out to me.
When you look ahead at this weekend's game, obviously one of the storylines on top of probably being Ben's last game as a professional, barring something, obviously the Steelers have to win and then have to have the unthinkable happen with Jacksonville beating the Colts there. But when you look ahead, the other storyline, obviously TJ Watt closing in on the Michael Strahan sack record there. I think needs just a couple more sacks there overall. Is that going to be the fault? I mean, look, you got a right tackle over there. I think in Macari that's kind of banged up. That hadn't been his best. And wanted to fall. I guess what I'm getting at is they're not going to let Watt. I mean, he's going to have a tight end poking in his ribs, and he's going to have a running back poking in his ribs almost every snap in that game, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Nick Boyle's on the COVID list. So, and Pat Ricard's on the COVID list.
Oh, Lord.
So I think TJ's got a real shot at that record. Mark Andrews needs 141 receiving yards to have the greatest yardage total by a tight end ever, set the NFL record. Andrews, of course, has just had an incredible season. I don't think he's going to set it. I think he's going to be doing some blocking because they really, it's all hands on deck with Watt. The Ravens know that. And so with Ricard and Boyle out, if they're out with COVID, I don't know, the COVID list is a little harder to read now. Right. But if they're out, Mark Andrews will definitely be blocking on some play. So that may keep him from setting his own record.
I think when we look ahead, too, I think Alex and the guys have a preview up on Steelers Depot this morning on both offense and defense. That the Ravens, and understandably so with that banged-up secondary, there's given up a lot of explosive plays as big plays as of late. And we've seen throughout the season, a lot of teams saw it last week with Cleveland playing that too-high shell there and almost saying, go ahead and run the football if you can. Is that what we're probably going to see from the Ravens defense this week is look, we just don't think that the Steelers can drive 13 plays down the field without making any mistakes and having to do those short passes all. So in other words, I guess, are we going to see maybe Najee Harris having probably potentially another, probably not as big a day as he did against the Browns, but another big day on the ground on the Ravens? Is the Ravens defense going to say, just go ahead and try to run it against these lighter box counts?
Definitely, because they feel pretty good about their run defense in that situation. Maybe that's one aspect of the team that's been pretty good this year. I think they're first in the league in rushing defense. Calais Campbell dealt with some injuries earlier in the month. He played most of the snaps against the Rams last week. And they're talking about him possibly retired. He's been good this year. Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams has come back from an injury and played some of his best football in the last couple of years. So they have some guys in there. They feel like, we'll do a decent job on the run defense. So it's an interesting gamble that they've been taking, and one they needed to take because the secondary is just too beat up. I mean, they got guys back there that just aren't going to be able to keep up. So that's how they've chosen to do it. Just stack it back there and go for the best. And I think that they will dare them to do that. And with the guys they have up front, I think they have a chance of pulling that off.
Before we get your prediction of the game and get you to talk quickly about your books here, and obviously we're probably not going to be able to talk to you for some time after this because of draft season and end of season stuff and all like that. What does your gut tell you that the primary need is going to be for the Ravens, either free agency or in the draft coming up during the offseason here?
Offensive line. Okay. To me, they're definitely they just need to solidify things. They need to get younger there. They signed Zeitler and Villanueva as free agents, spent a little bit of money there. Zeitler's been good. Villanueva, very up and down. And so, they need tackles. And I think they'll be looking there. They also need to get younger on the defensive line. I mean, really, it's the interior, I think, for the Ravens. And it's ironic because that's been their strength for years, block guys and stop the run. They need to fortify those areas.
All right, how about a prediction? Ben Roethlisberger's last game, potentially, more than likely, and it's kind of weird how this thing is cycled back. Obviously, Ben's first game that he got into was against the Ravens with a Tommy Maddox injury. I think the Steelers went on to obviously lose that one, and then Roethlisberger and the Steelers ran off all those wins after that back in 2004, kind of going full circle all the way back to Baltimore, kind of appropriate, if you will, on this. Which way do you see this game going? Obviously, the Steelers are missing. The COVID has really impacted them this week. Once again, I think a little bit less so than the Ravens, but that could obviously change in 48 hours time.
Who knows?
Here, but what's your gut feeling on which way this game goes, and how about one last final prediction for us, score wise? Well,
it's a hard one because of the COVID stuff, and the Ravens have been dealing with subtractions all year. I mean, the odds have worked against them here lately on these close games. It'll certainly be a close game. I think maybe the Ravens are due to win one. The Steelers have won 3 in a row against them. I'd say the Ravens pull this one out, so they go home and home even this year. I would say 23 to 22, Baltimore.
All right, fair enough there. And Christmas is obviously over, but people give gifts after Christmas. I think your book, The League, sold very good over the holidays there. Tell the people a little bit about that if they haven't already bought that, and tell them about the other book that you're working on right now.
My book, The League, on the early days of the NFL. Art Rooney Sr., one of the key guys. It's mainly about the owners who got the league going back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. Tons of Pittsburgh stuff in there, and I've heard from tons of readers from Pittsburgh. And the one I'm working on now, it won't be out for another year. The working title of it is Rocket Men. It's the history of black quarterbacks in the NFL. There's, again, Pittsburgh stuff in there. With Joe Gilliam and I'm Cordell Stewart. Actually, I'm working on some stuff right now, and it's a real interesting history. And so I'm working on that right now. It won't be out for a little while, but it will be there eventually because I have deadlines to hit.
I hear you. Well, I certainly look forward. The League is absolutely fantastic. Alex and I both have copies of that. We also look forward to that quarterback book as well, too, when it comes out. John, look, you're a blessing to us. You always make time for Alex. Very understanding. We appreciate our listenership. Loves you for sure. And at some point during the offseason, we're going to make it a point to contact you and check in with you and take the temperature of the Ravens and all. So with that, once again, John, thanks for being with Dave and Alex on the Terrible Podcast.
Thank you, John.
My pleasure as always. Another season, and look forward to talking to you again.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our thanks to John Eisenberg. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at @BeMoreEisenberg. Be sure to shout him out on Twitter. Let him know you heard him on the Terrible Podcast. Dave, you mentioned the Ravens will be looking for trench help this offseason. Pittsburgh and Baltimore can share notes maybe because they're both going to be rowing that boat here come draft time.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder. And look, I see the aspect they're going to have to address the tackle position. I think for sure. I think John's got it there. I wonder if they're going to want to address the center position though too. Something to look out for. But I think he's right. I think they're going to have to in the trenches, both sides of the football. I think that's something that you're going to see them address early in this draft. Tackle obviously would make a lot of sense for them because I don't think Alejandro Villanueva. I would be surprised if Alejandro Villanueva survives it to March.
Yeah, after trading away Orlando Brown Jr. and all the issues with Ronnie Stanley, there's a lot of uncertainty there at tackle, and certainly something this team is going to have to address at center. I haven't studied Bozeman enough to really know if they need an upgrade there or not. But, if Matt Skura hadn't gotten hurt those couple years back, they'd probably be good. But the injuries can change plans in a heartbeat. So, again, thank you to John for his time and always terrific insight over the years. All right, Dave, let's preview the Steelers.
Real quick, too, and John's been with us for years now. He feels like part of the podcast now. And the guy is very, very accommodating for Alex and I. And just what he's provided this show over the years really, really, I think lends a level of credibility to our show on top of it. So with this being the end of this season, it's probably going to be a while since we have until we have John back on again. Please reach out to him and let him know on Twitter or however through his website, johneisenberg.com, along those lines that you appreciate him coming on the show. Because once again, we talk to him twice a year, and it's kind of a given that we do, but it still takes time out of his schedule to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dave and I both thank all the beat writers who've joined us this year and their time, because the life of a beat writer, man, it is busy, it's nonstop, it's a lot of red eyes, it's long days, late nights, those kinds of things. And so we certainly appreciate everyone who has taken so graciously time out of their busy schedule to talk to a couple of just nerdy bloggers for a half hour every Wednesday or Friday.
Yep.
All right, Dave, let's preview the Ravens game ourselves again. Pittsburgh coming into this one 8-7-1, needing a win. Baltimore's playoff hopes still technically alive. They'll have to win this game, and I forget exactly what their path would be. It's going to take 4 or 5 different things having to happen for them to get into the playoffs. But Ravens offensively, again, don't expect Lamar Jackson to play in this one. Probably by the time people are listening to this, we'll have the Friday injury report out and probably have an even better feel for Lamar Jackson's status. But I'm working under the assumption Tyler Huntley is going to start this game. Pittsburgh has not faced him before. I think he's done well for him. I mean, he's a mobile guy. He's not at the Lamar level, but this guy's made some Lamar-like plays, both as a passer and as a runner, especially as a runner. And so I don't want to, waltz into this game saying, oh, Lamar's not there, it's a backup quarterback. Life's going to be easy, because Huntley will make it tough on Pittsburgh.
He certainly will. And when you look at he fits what they do. So it's not like schematically, I don't think they've had to change up a lot of things with him. He has better ball security than Lamar Jackson, to be quite honest with you, as well too. Now, does he have the Xbox features to him that you see? Kind of the A circle. I don't know all the buttons.
Yeah, I was going to let you explain the Xbox to the kids. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know all those terminologies you kids use nowadays, but
it's letters. It's X and a
X
PlayStation.
Circle, red square. I don't know, but
the Konami code.
Yeah. Throw it back in time there.
Yeah.
Tecmo Bowl, but that's probably about where I left off. That and an Atari.
You and Bo Jackson. That's when he left off the video games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of us had to work. Some of us had to walk uphill in the snow both ways to go to work in Florida. But
in your work, let's say you weren't pulling a 9 to 5, you were doing a little Breaking Bad kind of stuff over there.
Easy. long story short, cheat code kind of stuff that you see with Lamar Jackson, I don't think you get the same, or you definitely don't get the same level of that with Huntley, but he can run with the football. You have to respect that kind of read option with him. He will throw up 70 yards rushing on you if you're not careful in this game. And he has an ability to pass. He definitely knows where his security blankets are, i.e. Mark Andrews. He can push the football down the field on the outside to the guys in Marquise Brown and Rashad Bateman here. So don't get comfort, as Mike Tomlin would say, in the fact that this guy is a backup quarterback. And I think the biggest aspect of this game is making it a little bit harder on Huntley by shutting down the running game. And the Ravens, I think, have had some issues with that over the course of the last several weeks. I think teams are trying to and look, they had to play one game against the Bengals with Josh Johnson in there, and they were even able to move the football to some degree in that game early with even him at quarterback there. But I think you go into this once again, if you're the Steelers, of making sure they don't run, making sure you keep a guy like Huntley in the pocket, and then make that guy make plays with his arm instead of his legs down the field. Get him in those third down situations, and that's where you have the best ability to get him off the field. If you play in the same aspect, if you play, and the Steelers are probably going to want to try to. I mean, they probably want to play more man because they had some success against it, a lot heavy man in the game against the Browns. You better be careful if you play a lot of man in this game against the Ravens, because Huntley more likely to take off with the football than Baker Mayfield was.
Yeah, think about the speed on the outside. Hollywood Brown, can you man up and run with him? Witherspoon might be capable of it. It'll be tougher for, Cam Sutton to do some of that. But I think you will see more man, because Witherspoon said they were playing man primarily as a run defense mechanism. I don't know exactly. He didn't expand on that too much, but I think just, playing a little bit tighter in the box and stuff like that. So maybe you see some more man, but you're right. Huntley's going to be a more mobile threat overall. But I would just say, discipline, gap integrity, and just, eye discipline in this game, because there's going to be so many different pullers and misdirection. They'll run bash concepts. They run quarterback power. There's just a lot going on kind of in the backfield pre and immediately post snap with this Ravens offense. So being very good with your eyes is going to be, I think, really important in this game. About, being in the right position really starts with your eyes and processing correctly and processing quickly. And that's always a big challenge against this Ravens team that schematically isn't a whole lot different in the run game, at least with Huntley at quarterback instead of Lamar.
And we saw, I think, in that first meeting, them come right out and the ball's going to run through Andrews in the passing game initially. So they got to watch him on those out routes and those over routes with him. They'll try to sneak him out that way. But I think John Eisenberg hit on something too there. Look, they're not going to have who's going to help with Watt in this game. So you got to know that they don't want Watt to be a game wrecker. And the best way you prevent Watt from being a game wrecker is to be able to run the football. So, I think you're going to see a lot of that. And if the Steelers can get them in obvious passing situations, 3rd and 6 or 7 or longer, then that is the biggest opportunity for Watt to be a game wrecker, and a biggest opportunity for them to force Huntley into making a throw that he doesn't want to make.
Yeah, and the Ravens will be missing some pieces. Nick Boyle's on COVID. Probably won't play Patrick Ricard, which has been such an important piece for them.
That's
huge
a big loss.
Yeah, and he's on COVID and IR, so he's for sure not playing. He had just come back to them in last week's game and played about half the snaps in the Week 12 win, or Pittsburgh's Week 12 win over Baltimore back a couple weeks ago. So those are big losses. They do have some good backups. Eric Tomlinson's always been a guy I've liked, the backup tight end from UTEP that's been a good blocker. So they don't have a guy to really fill Ricard's role, maybe Boyle's role a bit better. But you're right. They're going to be hurting, and with some of the O-line guys being banged up is not going to help. But as you said in the past game, it's Andrews, it's Brown. They make up half the completions, 55% of the yards, 71% of this team's touchdowns this year. So those are the top two guys. But Bateman has also come on strong as kind of a slot receiver. As John said, it's shorter concepts, it's slants, it's curls, it's a more rhythmic passing offense. That's kind of been, to me, the biggest change between Lamar and Huntley. Is it's more of a rhythmic timing, 3-step game, ball out offense with Huntley under center, or probably more accurately in shotgun or in pistol.
And I think you got to make that guy be the MVP of the game, Bateman. I think that's that because you don't want Marquise Brown to go 80 on you on a play that way. I think you kind of resign to the fact that Andrews is going to get 6 for 60. If you held Andrews to like 6 for 60 and out of the end zone, I think you've done your job there. I think if you hold a guy like Marquise Brown to, I don't know, 4 for 60 and no touchdowns, I think you've done your job there. I want to see if they can beat me with their running game and with Bateman.
Yeah, you want to make any team play left-handed, as they say, without their top guys and relying on second and third options to be the ones to make plays. But I think every team goes in that game with that game plan, but it's harder. It's easier said than done than whenever you're going against really good talents like Andrews, who's having, as John said, literally your potential record-breaking season for a tight end. I mean, he's just been fantastic, and he's got, I think he's like 99 catches this year and 1,200-something yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, he's just been on fire at tight end.
And, John Eisenberg doesn't know how it's going to shake out, but I mean, they do have a lot of offensive linemen on that injury report this week, and they're not going to be, even if some of those guys like Powers and, their center and all, if those guys play, they're not going to be 100% in this game. And then you have Alejandro Villanueva over there at left tackle who has been Villanueva, so the longer that you force him to pass protect. Look, you don't want to get that. You don't want to get your hands involved in that meat cutter, that snatching trap of his, right? Because he will, as the Iron Sheik say, he will humble you. I gotta admit, though, I do like watching him still to this day. I don't care what uniform he's in. That might be one of the better snatching traps in the NFL right now that Joe Thomas is not around, right?
Right, but other ways to beat him. He certainly had some issues this year. Inside, Highsmith with the inside spin that's worked so well against Wills. You could certainly see that against Villanueva, kind of a bigger, longer guy, a little bit tougher for him to change directions if he's sliding, to the outside, trying to counter back inside. If you can kind of, ice pick that arm there. But that'll be a big one to watch. And then, of course, Watt watching the sack record as well. Again, 1 to tie, 1.5 to break. Although apparently, if you're PFF, it doesn't count. So there's that. I don't know if you saw the comments about that.
Yeah, and look, that's always going to be part of the discussion when you get into seasons extending versus, you could apply that same thing to Najee Harris this year,
Sure. They called it a regular season record. And listen, Strahan said it has the record, but they were playing 14 games before they played 16. So the Strahan's record not count because they came in a 16-game season. And at one point it was 14 games. And at one point it was 12. I mean, it's silly. It counts. It's a record. That's what they refer to as a regular season record. And if he has the most sacks in a regular season, he has the record.
Right.
Pretty common sense.
Right.
All right, Dave, flipping over to the Ravens defense, and certainly running the ball, you want to see Pittsburgh replicate or have some semblance of the same success this week as they had last week. I think it will be tougher because the Ravens have their issues in the secondary. Their front has still been strong. It's been a number 3 ranked run defense from a yards per carry standpoint, number 1 from a yards per game standpoint. I think they're number 5 in a expected points metric. So it's still been a solid front. And so running the ball, don't assume you'll have the same success in this game, though. Hopefully you do, but it will be tough sledding.
Yeah, look, I mean, their front, I think, is going to be the strength. If you look at all the units, both sides of the football here, where the edge is overall, I think, and especially with the Steelers' offensive line, who knows what that's going to look like come Sunday. The easy thing to point to here, and Mike Tomlin talked about trenches all year and all like that. I mean, the Ravens' defensive front trenches versus the Steelers' trenches, even if the Steelers have, Moore and Trey Turner, the Ravens are going to have the better unit here. Both sides of the football, even reversing them there. So with that, and if the Steelers don't have guys like Moore and they don't have guys like Trey Turner, that's going to handicap them even more. I would expect the Ravens going to play a lot of too high in this and say, go ahead and try. We don't think you can put together the 13 play drives, especially because you're not going to have Deontay Johnson in this one. Have at it. We're not going to let you big play us over the top here. So if you think you can be patient and not have penalties and not make mistakes up front and go 12, 13 plays down the field and get a touchdown, fine. You got one of them. Now do it again. And that's just going to be there. I just think that's what you're going to see. Patrick Queen's doing a lot better job, I think, of playing downhill and shooting some of these gaps and making some of these tackles for losses. And that's the last thing that you're going to need from the Steelers offense in this game is to be second and 13, second and 12. There's a stat floating around this week, early this week, and it's not a bit surprising that the Steelers, not only did the Steelers throw short of the chains on third and long, 7, 8 yards or longer, they don't even throw it to the line of scrimmage on those downs there. So what the Ravens are going to bet on is they're going to get you in 3rd and 7 situations, 3rd and 8 situations, and then say, you want to throw short of the chains, have at it. We'll rally to the football that way. And if you want Ben Roethlisberger to take a chance to throw the football at the chains, we'll gladly take our chances of maybe picking one off in that situation as well.
Well said. Could see a lot of too high given the issues of cornerback for this Ravens team and dare Pittsburgh to run the ball because if you play cover one, single high, you're going to get a lot of those one-on-one vertical shots that Ben's going to take, and you're going to ask your corners for Baltimore who are beat up and inexperienced and struggling to win some of those matchups. And yeah, the Ravens have the number 3 third down defense in football. Wink Martindale's probably, to me, maybe the best DC on third down in the NFL with the pressure looks, the sim pressure, stuff like that against an offensive line that is probably going to be missing some guys up front. That's going to really stress those guys. So you want to avoid 3rd and long for sure because that's going to just add to the chaos that Baltimore's able to create in some of those 3rd and 7+ situations. And
the Steelers don't, you get Pat Freiermuth and all like that, and but all that said, it's not a great matchup for Freiermuth, in coverage against, some of these guys that they'll probably have on him and Clark and potentially Queen and all like that. So the Steelers' best bet is to pop a explosive running play, maybe a couple more of those like they did against Cleveland, or get into a situation maybe where they get a one-on-one on the outside, go up over the top to a guy like Chase Claypool for one of those falling down 40-yard catches, and or catch short, run long. And who's going to do that for you this week?
Yeah, that's where you really miss Deontay because you're trying to find who has a similar skill set to Johnson to play that X receiver spot. Like, if Claypool went down, theoretically, Washington has a similar skill set. And so it's more of a one-to-one replacement with Johnson. Like, who is going to be your X? I think they're going to have to rotate guys. I mean, Miller's been more of a slot guy. Cody White. I mean, what are they going to do to really replace Deontay?
You might see Cody White get some snaps over there.
I mean, his calling card was versatility. He's played everything. I think he's kind of primarily worked out of the slot, that F spot in Pittsburgh. When he's played this year, the few snaps he's picked up, but just in terms of the skill set, even if Cody White's playing the X, the routes that he's able to run are going to be much different than what Deontay's able to run, or at least run, well.
Yeah, you'll probably see a lot of mesh stuff. Try to hit some of those zones that way. You're going to have to. I think the Steelers are going to have to use a lot of Najee Harris as a pass catcher out of the backfield. They're going to have to have some success in this one because there's probably going to be a lot of dump offs in here.
Yeah, he's already got the Steelers reception record. He's probably going to add to it handsomely. But I think Freiermuth you lean on, and you hope that Claypool can make some plays. And yes, you'll probably see a good bit of McLeod getting targeted over in the middle of the field. And could he play the X receiver spot? He's probably got the best skill set of any other guy to play the X and kind of run some of those quick, ISO routes.
Yeah, but he goes down so quick too. I wouldn't expect a lot after the catch with him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But you're in a bad situation. I mean, if it's not McLeod, I mean, Cody White ain't creating a lot of yak for you, I don't think either. So
no, you're right.
We'll have to wait and see.
And look, I mean, Chase played some X at Notre Dame, but it's not, it's not his specialty either. He's not quick twitch, that way. And, look, you're going to see a lot of him running across the middle at about five yards depth, I think, would Chase Claypool in this game.
Yeah, but maybe you ISO him, try to get him on a smaller, struggling corner. I mean, I think the Ravens defense has played a lot more soft zone coverage because of all the injuries. They don't have the guys. I mean, you don't have, Humphrey and Peters. You can't man up and play cover 1 or cover 0 like you could. You're playing a lot of cover 2, cover 4. So it's become a lot of softer, more passive zone coverage because they just obviously don't have the personnel to man up and trust those guys to win one-on-one. And I don't know if it's affected their blitz rate. I imagine that it has, just because if you're blitzing, you don't feel as comfortable whenever who are even the corners right now. I don't even know. He's trying to match up against,
and
a receiver.
Anthony Everett. He's banged up too. Probably not going to play in this game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a much similar to the way Pittsburgh's defense has played more zone and been more passive this year, but probably even more so. I think Baltimore's defense has become a lot more zone and passive heavy just because they've kind of had to.
And they'll gladly let Freiermuth sit down in some of those zones and catch 5 balls for 40 yards. The thing is, can you get Freiermuth maybe run a vertical a little bit? I don't know. I don't see it. But to me, I think they're going to go into this game plan saying let Freiermuth catch 4 or 5 balls for 40, 50 yards, keep him out of the end zone, and everything's fine.
Right. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here on the Steelers-Ravens matchup?
Yeah, it's not shaping up great for the Steelers at all. If people ain't figured that out yet.
All right, Dave, before we get to our picks for that game, let's make our picks for Week 18. Before, of course, we do that, for one last time this regular season, we'll hear from our friends over at MyBookie and thank them for being a sponsor of the Terrible Podcast all year long.
Absolutely. And from all the biggest games to the smallest events, make every bet worth your while with MyBookie. Start by doubling your first deposit instantly with MyBookie's first deposit bonus. Double your money before you even place a bet, and all you have to do is sign up and deposit using our exclusive promo code Terrible. And hopefully you've already done that. If not, make sure you get by MyBookie before this weekend and use promo code Terrible. They will match up to $1,000 first deposit of yours, dollar for dollar there. There are tons of great games and prop bets to take advantage of this week, the final week of the season. Obviously, some really, really good games. The Raiders-Chargers game is going to be one that's probably going to be the marquee game, I would think, this year, because I think it's kind of loser leave town match, if you will, overall. As long as that game doesn't end in a tie, especially, we don't expect the Colts to lose to the Jaguars, but any given Sunday. Also looking at that game, look, I mean, if you think the Jaguars have a chance in that game, I think it's like 15.5 points. We'll see here in a little bit what MyBookie says. Load up on the Jaguars this week. Don't wait any longer. Head to MyBookie today to redeem your double deposit bonus so you can get in the game and start winning big today. That's promo code Terrible to receive double your first deposit instantly in your account. No hassle, no wait. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie, and you can find them on the web at mybookie.ag. They got a great app as well, too, so you can take care of your business with the man right on your phone.
All right, Dave, let's make our picks for Week 18.
Let us do it here. We will start with the Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs, big favorites in this one on the road, 11.5 points over the Broncos.
Are the Chiefs, I guess they have everything to play for because they're trying to get the 1 seed. So, yeah, give me the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, feels like a run out the string kind of game on the Denver side of things here at this point here. I'm with you. I will you know what? I got to differ some things up on you this week, I think, just from a race standpoint.
Oh, we're closer. We are 2 games up on you. It's real close.
I think we're close here. You know what? Give me Denver plus the 11.5. I think Kansas City wins this, but let's call it a 10-point game. So that 11.5 points will come in handy on that. So I'll take Denver plus the points. Dallas on the road against the Eagles, another road favorite here. Cowboys favored by 4.5. Oh, Lord, I hope it doesn't get to Dallas having a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's a Steelers fans' worst nightmare, I think. 4.5 points. Dallas favored over the Eagles.
Yeah, this one's tougher. I know Dak hasn't played as well lately. There's a lot of COVID issues with Dallas. Give me the Eagles actually in this one.
I'll say Dallas covers that 4.5 on the road against Philly. Chicago Bears on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. Why the heck did they go to this 17-game season when you got a lot of these games that just don't mean a damn bit of good? It's money. I know it's money. Chicago Bears on the road. Vikings at home, 5.5 point favorites against the Bears.
Yeah, give me the Vikings. I think Fields isn't playing in this one. Actually, I think the Eagles have a bunch of COVID issues as well, but I'm sticking with Philadelphia. I won't change my answer. But in this one, give me Minnesota.
Give me Minnesota in this one, and I'll lay the 5.5 points as well, too. How about the Colts at the Jaguars? Alex, any prayer? I don't even think Jesus at quarterback could win this one. But Colts road favorites, 15 points, and their Colts are 0-6 in Jacksonville in the last 6 games. It would truly be a miracle if the Jaguars pull off the upset here. Minus 15 in the Colts.
Has any team ever won a game being 15.5-point dogs? Has that ever happened before? I assume probably it has at some point. But what's the history on that? I wonder.
Probably not great, Bob.
Yeah, sticking your neck out for that one. There'll be a lot of Pittsburgh kids named Trevor 9 months from now if the Jaguars pull this one off. But I don't think it's going to happen. I'm rooting for it. But I think the Jaguars make it interesting for a little bit and give us some false hope. But I think the Colts win this one.
So you taking the 15 or no?
Give me the Jaguars to cover. Yeah, but they're not going to win this game.
Okay. Yeah, great point there about a lot of people saying they'll name their kid Trevor if the Jaguars win this game.
I will too. I will put it out there. My future unborn child.
Wow. So if regardless of what the Steelers do, right? So if the Jaguars win this game, you will name your firstborn son Trevor. Is that correct?
Regardless, the Steelers have to win too, because it'd be a very Steelers thing to do if the Jaguars won.
I was trying to trap you there.
Yeah. Let me just find a woman who wants to say hello to me first. That's kind of like the first step. There's a lot of other steps in between, but sure. Well, I'm going to regret that, I'm sure. But give me the Jaguars.
How about a woman named Trevor?
I'm not going to address that. What's your pick in this game?
Lola, Lola, Lola. You're not a big Kinks fan, are you?
No.
All right. Let's see. Give me the Colts late of 15. You're right, though. This would be a very Steelers way to wrap up the season here. If somehow, some way, the Jaguars won, but the Steelers lost.
Really would.
Give me the Colts late of 15 points. Tennessee Titans on the road against the Texans. Titans laying 10 in this one.
Texans have played better as of late. You got to give credit to David Culley for kind of keeping that group together. Davis Mills, holding his own, I guess. Titans, though, need this one for the 1 seed. Man, they really had a good statement win over Miami last week. Give me the Titans.
Give me the Titans late of 10 points in this one as well. Washington football team on the road against the New York football Giants. Washington laying 7 on the road against the Giants.
And the Giants are starting Fromm at quarterback, I think, because Glennon's out and Daniel Jones is out. And Fromm did not have a good debut. We'll put it that way. Give me Washington in this game, Dave.
Give me Washington late of 7 points. That might be the stone cold lead pipe lock of the century of the week.
Is that Degenerates game of the week? I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That might be.
So it's Stone Cold and Degenerates game of the week.
Yeah, the stone cold lead pipe lock of the century of the week degenerate game. How about that?
I like it.
Late of 7 points there. Cincinnati Bengals on the road against the Browns. I think the Bengals are sitting a lot of people. The Browns had the advantage here, I think, because they're sitting Baker Mayfield.
Ouch.
In this one. Browns laying 6 at home against the Bengals.
Yeah, are the Browns going to sit some guys? I think Stefanski said the healthy guys will play. But will Nick Chubb play? Is he healthy enough to play? This, to me, is the third most important game of the week behind the Steelers, Ravens, behind Jaguars, Colts, because this will answer the question, how many wins will it take to win the AFC North? They're sitting at 10. You said 9-10. I said 11. Yeah. So I was like, please don't sit your starter, Zach Taylor. Joe Burrow should play. You don't want to be rusty going to the playoffs, right? And so we'll see what happens.
And look, I'll be honest with you. You say 9-10. I really thought I was.
You were 9 to start the offseason.
I was 9. So you're helping me out there, giving me a little bit of credit for the 10, which the Bengals obviously already have at this point here. So yeah, it would really go against my prediction if the Bengals won this game and had 11 wins.
Bottom line, Brandon Allen starting for the Bengals is not good news. Give me the Browns.
Give me the Browns late of 6 points as well. New England Patriots on the road against the Dolphins. Patriots 6.5 point favorites in this one.
Are they playing their guys too?
I think there's a possibility that they could host in their. I haven't looked at it. They're probably ability maybe of winning versus losing, hosting a game to start with. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, they're the 3 seed right now, right? So I don't know if there's a lot of implications there. What's the line?
6.5. Patriots on the road favorites.
Yeah, give me the Patriots.
Give me the Patriots late of 6.5 in this one as well too. Jets on the road against the Bills. The Bills are 16-point home favorites in this one.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the Jets cover this game. That line's too big for a finale like that.
That's a big line, but I'll take it. I'll lay the 16 points. They're going to blow the Jets out this one, I think. Panthers on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, -1 Antonio Brown. Buccaneers laying 8 at home against the Panthers.
Yeah, Arians will keep that team focused. They'll right the ship, and they'll win this one pretty handily.
I like that as well, too. I'll lay the 8 points with the Buccaneers. Saints at the Falcons. Saints laying 3.5 on the road against the Falcons. Matty Ryan's last stand?
Until he comes to Pittsburgh next year, of course. Don't
you put that on me, Ricky Bobby?
I don't know. Give me the Saints in this one.
Give me the Falcons to pull the upset here at home. I'll take the 3.5. Seahawks on the road against the Arizona Cardinals, who I think J.J. Watt's back practicing again for them. I don't think he's going to obviously play in this, but I think they're starting to get him moving again. Cardinals laying 6.5 at home against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks.
Seattle will be very interesting this offseason when it happens with Carroll and Wilson. Give me the Cardinals,
though. Give me the Cardinals. You know what? Give me the Seahawks plus the 6.5 points. I think the Cardinals win, but I think the Seahawks cover. I'll take the 6.5 points here. We're talking about Russell Wilson and pride here. 49ers on the road against the Rams. The Rams laying 4.5 points at home against the 49ers.
Is Trey Lance still certain for the 49ers? Is Garoppolo coming back? I'm not 100% sure. Rams have been a bit of a disappointment. I mean, it's just been a little hot and cold for them, but still give me the Rams.
Give me the Rams. I'll lay the 4.5 points in this one, too. And then the game people be waiting up for Chargers at the Raiders out here in Las Vegas. Chargers 3-point road favorites.
Can I take the tie? It's on the table. It could be an option. No, give me the Chargers in this game.
You know what? Give me the Raiders plus the 3 points here. I think the Raiders can maybe win this one outright too. So I will take the 3 points with the Raiders there. All right, circling back, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday at 1:00 CBS. Ravens currently 5-point home favorites against the Steelers.
Ben's last game, probably at least last regular season game. We don't talk about that enough because the emotion was kind of poured into the last home game. But it's like there was one more game left to be played after that, so we kind of almost lose the luster of that. I think I would love the Steelers to win this one day, but man, with the offensive line, issues and the Ravens secondary is a mess. But does Pittsburgh have the receivers to threaten there, especially with Deontay Johnson probably not playing in this game? I just don't see it. So I got Baltimore winning this one close game, as it always is, but 23-20 over the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay, I was going to go, I think, but you know what? What was the 2004 score between the Ravens and the Steelers when Ben made his debut for
26-13 or something? I forget what the score was.
Was it 30-13? Does that sound
Let me
right?
look at it. How about we just use the internet here and figure this thing out? Yeah, all right. You're the internet, Dave. 30-13 was the final.
Okay. I will go 30-13. I think the Ravens have their way with the Steelers in this one. I think it gets ugly, so I think it's Ben comes in 30-13, loser against the Ravens, and he goes out 30-13. I was going to be on 13 regardless here. My gut was telling me 23-13. But I will give them the same score as Ben's debut there.
I thought you were going to hit me with the old switcheroo and say the Steelers are going to win this one 30-13.
Yeah.
Man, you think it's going to be that ugly? Is that so? What's the biggest reason for the multiple possession loss?
That some they'll turn the football over one or two times. There might be a pick six or a fumble six or something or something, an extra possession. Touchdown in this game of some sort, some kind, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, dang, that would suck to go out on, but I guess
I picked them. I picked them to beat the Browns and all, right? I mean,
no, I respect it. It. So.
But I'm trying to be honest here. The way this offensive line is shaping up for them and not having Deontay Johnson, I mean, are they going to be able to move the football down the field?
Thought the offense was bad last week. Now take away some of those guys, and the odds of this team winning for $1.90 again against Ravens probably aren't great. So 20 points I'm giving them might be generous.
I mean, and they'll have to have even a chance to win this game. I think they're going to be the ones that have to steal the possession and have a defensive touchdown or special teams touchdown or something along. Look, they'll obviously play hard for Ben and all like that. I don't think they have enough firepower in this one overall.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think
have him losing
Huntley's a better quarterback than what people give him credit for. I think they'll be able to move the football on the Steelers defense a little bit too often in this one.
Well said. All right, Dave, let's get to reader emails, and close out today's show.
Real quick, and this is my terrible take yesterday. Should Ben have won the most valuable player? And in case you're just tuning in, there's probably no shocker to anybody. TJ Watt was voted team MVP for the third year in a row. First time that's happened with the Steelers as well, too, right? That the players won team MVP. They've had several people win it back to back. I think most recently was James Harrison winning the award back to back here. The fact that Ben's only won the award once during his 18 years, is that a travesty?
I wouldn't use travesty. I think it's one of those things where if you had given it to truly the most valuable guy every single year, Ben would have won it 18 years, in a row, or probably 15 years in a row, something like that. And so I think you gave it to someone else that, because of the nature of the quarterback position, obviously. So, I'm not losing sleep over it, and I doubt Ben is either.
But you can make some arguments, and I tried to during my quick 3-minute terrible take yesterday. You can make some arguments that Ben probably a couple of those seasons could have been at least co-MVP, right? The years that one of the years James Harrison won it, I think, what was that, 2007? And then the other year that Le'Veon Bell won it. Both those seasons were statistically better seasons than Ben's 2009 season that when he won the award. So. And look, I kind of ended the terrible take this way was the Steelers since Ben came to Pittsburgh in 2004, the Steelers have never had a losing record during the season. So maybe 18 years in a row he should have been team MVP. Yeah,
I think you understood the value of the quarterback position and what he meant to the team, but I think most people recognized that and wanted to kind of spread the love to somebody else. And of course, TJ Watt, with the season he's having this year, at least, is more than deserving of the award and better get that DPOY award in the offseason.
Absolutely. It'd be a bigger upset than last year if he doesn't get the Defensive Player of the Year award at this point, if you ask me. All right, to the email machine we go. Grant Kinney writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, I'm sure you both very moved on to watching and preparing for the Ravens game, but it's still hard not to look back and enjoy Ben's last home game as a victory. I had two quick questions that got me thinking from what the announcers were saying during the game. One, they kept saying how Harris' running success was coming from the play calling from the OC. It seemed they were calling more of the interior double team blocks. If that was part of the success, why are they just now figuring that out? Look, they run a lot of inside zone anyway, right? Now, did they run a little bit more inside zone in this game as opposed? Yeah, but and I think Alex kind of pointed this out here as well too, was the fact that while the blocking was improved in this game overall, top to bottom, Najee did a lot of good things in this game, and a lot of those potential 3-yard runs were 8-yard runs. The first big explosive 30-yard run that he had in the game was his best run of the game, if you ask me. Hassenauer, who was it? JC, I think, praised Claypool for a block on that play. I must have got the wrong copy of the all 22 on that one. That was all Najee beating a couple of players on that game. But make no mistake about it, Najee played a big role in the team having run success in this game, not so much scheme or double team interior blocks or what have you.
Yeah. They weren't doing anything different. Like schematically, I think they leaned on the inside zone more, but they weren't, they didn't discover the art of the double team in this game. They were just a bit better at it. But Hassenauer was praising Claypool, not for the initial block, but running downfield to kind of cut off the linebacker at the end there.
If that's what it was, then that's kind of faint praise because there's not much to happen there.
Yeah, but that's definitely what I was saying. But Claypool has had some loafs, though, in terms of effort, downfield blocking. So, I'll take it because he's kind of had some really bad looks this year in that regard. And I think it kind of helped a little bit, maybe. I don't know. But that's what Austin, I think, was referring to at least.
Okay. Well, if that's what we're praising there, we've hit some lows, I think. with him having to praise Claypool for running down the football field. Also, they kept praising Newsome for his coverage on Claypool, but for me watching it, kept feeling like during the back shoulder throws, he was falling backwards to the ground while trying to catch the football. Is this something you have noticed as well, even saw on his college tape? Yeah, it is. And if you go back to that initial contextualization I did on Claypool, here was the notes on Chase Claypool: a contested ball catcher, right? Not a guy that's running away from people, but a guy that's going up and getting footballs. And then unfortunately, a lot of those, even at Notre Dame, ended up with him on his back. Okay. But he was an explosive play producer from that element mainly. All right. So it's not that huge a surprise that we're seeing catches at the NFL level of him falling backwards, not getting much yak after a catch.
Yeah, I thought Monday was really frustrating because I know he was in some tough situations, but he's got to make at least one of those plays. I'm not saying he has to make them all, but he's got to at least make one. He could not make one play. No receiver really could on Monday night, and that's been so frustrating because you're relying on those guys to make those plays, and they're capable of doing it, but you're just finding consistency. I said since camp, consistency is the biggest issue with Claypool's game, and it's really been a turbulent year with a lot more lows and highs for him.
Look, I didn't expect this guy to run away from people to become Martavis Bryant. Everybody knows that, but I think his season overall has been disappointing from what I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think too. Who could argue otherwise? It has been disappointing.
Brett Now writes in, I really enjoyed discussion last week about the idea of drafting Humphreys instead of Harris. I agree the choice should be between Harris and Humphrey, and I personally would favor Humphrey as well. Drop off is greater from Humphreys to the next center versus Harris to the next running back, etc. With that said, none of this addresses the drafting of Green. Once you got to the third round, the question is who was the best available at that point. My question is, should the Steelers have drafted someone else there? The next three centers were Quinn Miners, Drew Dahlman, and Trey Hill. I don't believe Hill has played for the Bengals, but have you seen enough of Miners or Dahlman to judge how they compared to Green? If not, what is your gut feeling? Personally, I wanted them to draft Miners, and from what I have seen, they have missed on that one, in my honest opinion. I got to be honest with you, I have not watched a lot of Quinn Miners tape this year, and same goes for Dahlman and Hill. So if the question is, would you have taken one of those other three centers in the third round over Green? I think Miners would probably been the only one in the equation. I like the Notre Dame kid. If you're going to talk about a project center, but I don't even.
Robert Hainsey. What's he doing?
What is he doing? I don't know.
Where did he go? Tampa? No. Where did he go? No, he's with Tampa. He's played 24 snaps this year.
Right. So there's nothing to evaluate there. But if you're going to take a project guy that could, play maybe anywhere, it would have been him probably later in the draft. So I don't think you can look at this as, okay, if they didn't draft Green, what other, I suppose you could look at it. What they should have done is once they missed out on Dickerson and Humphrey, is to go another direction there and then address the damn position in free agency.
Yeah, at that point, though, I don't know for sure what free agents you were going to bring in post-draft.
You should have already addressed it anyway by then.
I liked Hill coming out. He had some medical stuff. He had some knee issues. There was reports they were interested in Dahlman, and he was a pedigree guy from Stanford. Dad played in the NFL for a couple of years, I think with the 49ers.
Wasn't he a bit undersized too, though?
Yeah, he's a pretty small guy, but Green isn't a big guy either, I suppose. And Miners probably got dinged for the whole...
Let me help you out. No, Green's not a big guy at all. You knew that, though.
What's that?
Let me help you out.
Green isn't a big guy. Yeah. If you weren't aware by now. And then Miners probably got dinged for the whole small school not being game ready enough, apparently. But that was maybe the evaluation there. So yeah, I think. And Dahlman hasn't played much. Dahlman's played like 60 snaps this year for the Falcons, so you haven't really gotten a good sampling on those. I think Miners had some issues early in the year. I think it's kind of cleaned up a bit since, but I haven't studied those guys to get a really good, thorough evaluation.
Let us indulge him here and look at the picks taken from Green until the Steelers' next pick which would have been who? It would have been what number overall was that?
Whatever Dan Moore was.
Yeah, 128th overall, right? So there was quite a lag in selections there. Trey Sermon, Nico Collins, Patrick Jones, the edge rusher out of Pitt, Anthony Schwartz, who we kind of thought maybe this team liked Anthony Schwartz, or because of the sparkiness, right?
Yeah, I know we didn't like him, and
right.
Yeah, we weren't big. He was just a speed guy only.
Monty Rice, Spencer Brown, Northern Iowa, guy that I kind of like the Steelers maybe getting maybe in that spot. Ben Cleveland, out of Georgia, Robert Hainsey, out of Notre Dame, Ronnie Perkins, Trey McKitty, Quinn Minor. So there were a couple of interior guys in there that the Steelers could have potentially had in there. I mean, the list is obviously way too long to go through all these, but I suppose even looking at it, even Drew Dahlman went before Dan Moore did there. So, I suppose you could circle some of those guys and wonder what if. I hate to think that they went, you know what? We missed out on these two centers here. We got to grab a center here, It's
kind of what it felt like happened.
It is.
They've been known to do that with Artie Burns. And they needed a center. It's not like they didn't need a center.
But, it almost becomes the picking out of the fantasy mag pick. He's the next one listed.
Yeah.
Draft him.
Yeah, I don't play those rewrite history games too much because we could play those forever and ever.
Right. It is a popular exercise right after the draft.
Mm-hmm. The one that you do is fun, but not like 6 months and a year after because then it's just that's all hindsight.
Let me see if we got a few more in here real quick here. Hunter Higgins writes in, David Ox, you guys are my favorite Twitter follows of all time. Steelers Depot for life. I'm going to, you want to prove you would like us, Hunter? Get that tattooed across your belly there. Steelers Depot for life. Alex, no, don't, Hunter, really don't do that. Alex, you and Dave responded to an email last week that basically stated how the Steelers should just lose to gain draft positions / other reasons. Alex, I love the response of why would you ever root for your team to lose, which is the absolute truth. I don't care if this team is 0-16. I still root for them to win any day they play. He says he harkens back to his favorite football quote of all time from Herm Edwards, and that would be,
you play to win the game.
You play to win the game. What are some of your guys' thoughts, favorite football quotes? All right, what are some of your, oh man, we could go down the list here. I just generically kind of speaking, Hank Strand, just matriculate the football down the field, boys. That was kind of an in-game, not a quote overall. What are some of your guys? What are some of your favorite football quotes, Alex?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something. Nothing's
really
off the hook. Jumping to mind. Yeah,
Denny Green.
The rest in peace, Denny Green.
Playoffs.
Yeah, Jim Morris Sr.'s got some good ones. Herm Edwards. I don't know if there's one that stands out to me so much, though. I maybe there's one I'm missing. I'll have to think about. It's a really good question. Obviously, there's a ton of Tomlinisms that are always
ingrained
really fun to listen
us,
to.
Right?
Yeah, I kind of almost write like it now. Sometimes I kind of feel like I put some of those Tomlinisms in there. I don't know. Do you have one in particular? I'm trying to think of maybe a more obscure one that I really like.
Well, mine are more come from maybe TV clips than anything, and the whole Vince Lombardi, a seal here and a seal here. I mean, those classic, those things last forever.
Yeah.
Winning's not the only thing or everything. How's that quote go? From Lombardi.
Winning's not everything. It's the only thing. Is that the quote?
Right,
there was one. And I just saw this yesterday. I think it was a high school coach. He just had passed away, some revered PA coach, and apparently he was really good with one-liners. And at one point, his team had given up a 2-point convert or a fake field goal or something like that. And the quote was, "I told my team to watch the fake, and they watched it, and then they scored." And so I don't know the whole context too, but that was one that made me laugh quite a bit.
All right, we'll end this one with from Brian Fanning writes in, with so many problems from the inside linebacker position this year, I'm wondering what your take is on Buddy Johnson. I'm not a scout, but I thought he looked great coming out of A&M and was the steal in the draft. Why has he been inactive most of the season, and does the team have bigger plans for him next season? He lost out on helmets because of not enough helmets to go around, because of guys like Danny Smith trusted guys such as Marcus Allen and UG3 on special, and Robert Spillane. Those guys got the special team helmets over Buddy Johnson for starters. Now, Buddy got one early because of injuries. 1 or 2 games early, I think he dressed, but that was because of injuries or COVID or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't dress for a long time. And then when it looked like he did start dressing again and got a few snaps, then this foot injury came out of nowhere for him. And then that's what even if he had been healthy, maybe not when Devin Bush was kind of sidelined here, but he missed an opportunity to get a helmet because of that foot injury. And where are we right now on Buddy Johnson? I don't have a lot of snaps to talk about, Brian, to be honest with you. And there's just not a lot there. We don't have a lot to go on with him. He's one of the biggest mysteries right now. Maybe when it comes to draft picks still on this team right now. I will say that you saying that he looked great coming out of A&M is a little bit of hyperbole, and I don't view him as the steal in the draft either.
Yeah, I think that's a touch too strong, safe to say. We just haven't learned a lot about him this year because he didn't play much. I thought he kind of needed a year as a redshirt type of guy. I thought the tools were there for him, but I thought from a processing standpoint, from a seeing the ball consistently standpoint in the run game, and I needed some kind of time in the NFL. So I think that year 2 jump will be hopefully noticeable for him. But it looked okay in the limited action he's gotten, but he just hasn't played a lot of football this year, so it's really hard to judge it.
Is it fathomable? Is it plausible that he could be a starter alongside Devin Bush next year?
I mean, that's
a reach, ain't it?
It means the team really didn't do anything this offseason to address the position, which kind of feels like a mistake. So, I mean, unless he rockets off in the summer or something, I mean, there's a chance of it because I think, he's a well-rounded game, more athletic than Spillane, and can play in space a bit better. So I don't know. When you have a guy that hasn't played a lot of football, you really can't make a lot of proclamations about it because you just haven't seen him enough consistently to really know what you have in him, and the team knows that better than we do.
Yeah, and look, it's hard to sit here right now and say this guy is going to be this, that, or the other. I think at this point, what I'm hoping for is to get him a helmet and making some tackles on special teams. That's the next step that I want to see, obviously. And we'll have some preseason tape hopefully and then Alex at camp, and I'll try to see progress right there. But temper your expectations right now until further notice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think that's a good place to end this because we got a couple of interviews coming in and all from the media here pretty soon. So with that, Alex, winding down the regular season here. You and I will still be busy 3 shows a week for the coming next couple of weeks here because we'll have free agency to talk about. Who knows? Maybe the Steelers will somehow sneak into the playoffs. Maybe we're talking about that on Monday. So you can't totally rule that out there. But regardless, you and I will be back on Monday recapping whatever happened in the Steelers game against the Ravens on Sunday and the rest of the NFL and the playoff picture, yada, yada. So until then, that's a great way to end the podcast, right? With a yada, yada. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, The Terrible. Your place falling apart over there or what?
Oh, could you hear that? I'm sorry. I threw my notebook down.
You discussed it. I'm taking too long.
Yeah, I'm not getting targets. Not getting the ball. Not getting the ball enough.
Hey, take your pads off.
My headset's coming off. Yeah.
I'm making my throat gesture, throat / gesture right now. That's a great way to end it. Go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, ad-free version. Go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site. Until Monday, thank you, everybody, for listening. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.